So yesterday, we started with a tactical discussion around the close, and we talked about avoiding some of those really big leaps and being really clear about what the next logical step is. That next logical step should be the close. It should be the contract. It should just make sense. That should be the next thing that should happen. Many times we try to rush those things because of challenges we have on our side. We want to make a number for the month or for the quarter or for the year or whatever it is. Well, how do we go through this process of designing? How do we design to improve the likelihood that we get to those areas and that we understand each of the stages that get us closer to the close? Well, let's channel our inner Covey, design backward so that we can execute forward. And this happens on the golf course, right? The golf course, got a pin that I'm going after. My best shot is from about 115 yards out. So if I can be at 115, I'm in a good place. If I'm playing a hole that is, let's say, I'm going to do this simple math. I'm going to say 415 yards. Well, I could hit driver, let's say 250. Now I've got this gap that I need to address here. And so I've got a couple of options. I can hit different clubs to address this gap between my 250 and whatever that number is to get me to 115. Well, the same thing happens when we're talking about designing for our customers. And when we think about it in the context of moving again to closed won kind of scenario. So now this is about us. How do we continue to move through, make progress through those closed won stages? So to get to closed won, we've got to have a signed contract. So signed contract. Or if we're at In-N-Out Burger, it could be that we just pay money. We pay money at the cash register. So signed contract. Well, in order to get to the signed contract, we have to review the contract, right? So, all right, a contract has to be reviewed. In order for it to be reviewed, it has to be received. Sometimes I don't have spell check on my whiteboard, but in order for it to be reviewed, it's got to be received. Okay. In order for it to be received, there has to be some kind of general agreement in principle to some terms. So terms. So there's going to be some kind of a negotiation here. Let's just call these things business terms. Might be licensing terms. Might be a general agreement if I'm in that In-N-Out Burger, a decision of what I'm actually going to order and communicating that to the person at the cash register. So signed agreement, review contract, receive contract, agree to terms. In order to agree to terms, there's got to be general agreement that we're going to be able to solve the problem that they've got inside their organization. So let's call that, and in our sales process, we'll call this feasibility. So it's feasible for the customer to solve the problem given with our product, the way that it currently sits, from a licensing perspective, a technology perspective, a cost perspective. So there's some feasibility stuff that's going to happen. Well, in order to find feasibility, there probably is going to be some kind of a test, assessment, review. Anyhow, I've got a number of different stages that I've got to be able to navigate that all have to come after my first conversation with the customer, all the way back here. So I go from first conversation and I want to jump to signed agreement because I'm really good and I can get really excited about closing business and one call closes and all those other things. But what we forget is there's all of these pieces that have to come in the middle. And if we take the time to go through and think through, design backward, relative to those stages, leveraging the data that we have from our customer base, then we can put ourselves in a better position where we can start to help the customer navigate each of these steps, and we can predict what needs to happen next. By being able to predict, we get ourselves into a better position where we can start guiding, providing advice, providing some direction, leading the customer through the process. The other thing that's really good about documenting this down and figuring out what each of those steps are is if something changes, something doesn't align with what you expect, then it creates an opportunity for you to do the dog ear thing and kind of say, huh, maybe I should ask some other questions. Maybe I don't have access to all of the information. Anyhow, design backward, just like we did with that on that golf course, design backward, execute forward. And at each stage, as we're executing forward, reassess where you are because your operating environment starts to change. Let me know what you think about the whiteboard Wednesday. Let me know what topics you'd like to see me cover. And I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you.